In the quiet village of Oduma lived a beautiful but strange woman named Grace. She moved into the village alone, with no family, and built a small mud house by the river. Nobody knew where she came from, but her smile could melt even the hardest heart. The villagers welcomed her, but whispers began when men who visited her house often didn't return home the same. Some came out confused, some never spoke of what happened, and a few even stopped seeing their wives. Grace always walked around with a strange necklace made of bone and cowries. After just 1 year in Oduma, Grace gave birth to her first child, a boy. No one knew the father, but the baby looked nothing like anyone in the village. That was just the beginning. Word spread that Grace had something powerful. Some said she used charm, others said she was a spirit. Yet men kept visiting her, even married men, even respected elders, and she welcomed them all with her smile. Within 5 years, Grace gave birth to 5 more children, each with different skin tones, eye colors, and body shapes. The village priest, Elder Jonah, warned the people, something is not right. That woman is collecting destinies. But the men didn't stop. In fact, it seemed they were drawn to her like flies to honey. And each time one left her hut, Grace's stomach grew big again. She never went to the clinic. She gave birth alone under the moonlight. One night, heavy rain fell over Oduma, but the rain did not sound normal. It cried. The wind howled like voices in pain. Villagers locked their doors. In the morning, Grace had given birth again. This time, 2 twins. The babies didn't cry. They hummed. The village began to panic. Children whispered stories that the twins had glowing eyes in the night. The elders begged Grace to leave Oduma, but she refused. "This is my land now," she said, smiling as her children surrounded her. A brave man named Michael confronted her. "What are you doing to our people?" She simply answered, "I am not the problem. You should ask the men who entered willingly." The next day, Michael was gone. Nobody saw him again. By the time Grace had 13 children, each of their fathers had either disappeared, run mad, or left the village. Every child looked different, some light-skinned, some dark, some tall, others short. But each had one thing in common: a strange mark behind their left ear. The village chief, Mr. Benson, tried to investigate. He invited one of Grace's children, a boy named Samuel, to the palace. But as Samuel sat down, all the palace lamps went off, without wind, without rain. The boy just stared into the fire and said, "We are many." That night, Chief Benson dreamed of 13 snakes entering the village gate, all wearing human faces. When he woke, he was sweating and his left ear was bleeding. Some villagers began to say Grace was cursed. Others believed she was a blessing, sent to test Oduma's spirit. But no one could explain why more men kept disappearing after visiting her. The number of her children rose to 16. A woman named Mary, whose husband vanished after visiting Grace, marched to Grace's hut with fire in her hands. But before she could throw it, she dropped the torch and knelt down, crying. "I saw my husband in her eyes," she whispered. People began to wonder, were these children the souls of the men trapped in new bodies? Was Grace truly human? One day, her first son, now 21 years old, returned from the forest. His name was David. He was tall, quiet, and walked like a spirit. He entered the village square and said, "My mother is preparing for the final child." The villagers watched in fear as Grace stood behind him, belly full once more. After 22, the door closes, she said calmly, "Then the truth shall be revealed." The priest cried out, "What door? Who are you people?" That night, strange symbols appeared all over the village walls. The ground shook lightly, like footsteps coming from under the earth. At midnight, drums began beating from the sacred forest, drums that no one had touched in 50 years. The villagers gathered at the edge but dared not enter. Grace's children were seen standing in a circle, eyes closed, swaying to the beat. Elder Jonah called it the awakening. He claimed it was written in old scrolls that a woman would come with many wombs, and through her, forgotten souls would return to complete a task. Meanwhile, men in the village could no longer sleep. They all began hearing whispers at night. "Come to me. Come to me." Grace's stomach grew again, larger than ever before. This time she did not smile. She walked slowly, always barefoot, her eyes red like she hadn't slept. The 21 children no longer spoke. They just followed her like shadows. Villagers stopped coming out at night. Some ran away from Oduma. Those who stayed locked their doors and prayed. The wind carried strange laughter, and Grace's house glowed every full moon. Finally, during a thunderstorm, Grace screamed. Lightning struck the ground near her hut, and then everything went silent. The 22nd child had arrived. The next morning, the sun refused to rise. A thick fog covered Oduma. Grace walked to the village square with her newborn wrapped in leaves, not cloth. The baby had golden eyes and did not blink. She stood before the villagers and said, "Oduma is not just a village, it is a gate, and I am the key. These children are the guardians. You let them in, now they will watch you." Suddenly, her 22 children stood in a line. The ground opened slightly, and they entered one by one into the crack. Grace followed last, smiling gently. Years passed. Oduma changed. No one spoke of Grace anymore, but people remembered. Sometimes children born in the village had the same mark behind their left ear. The drums from the forest still played once in a while, on their own. New families moved in, but some houses were never touched again, especially Grace's hut. Every child in Oduma was taught one rule: never follow a strange woman, no matter how kind she looks. And so the story of Grace became a warning. But some elders still whispered, maybe she will return when the gate opens again. Thank you for watching. Please make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel.